Welcome to our YouTube channel, The Alien Tales, and please ensure that you have subscribed.
Every night I wake up with new scars. She insists she's protecting me from something worse. The cuts appear while I sleep. She claims they're preventative, blocking something that wants inside. I'm starting to doubt her sanity or mine. The mirror doesn't lie, even when I wish it would. 3 parallel lines trace my left shoulder blade, precise as surgical incisions, already healing with that strange iridescent sheen I've grown accustomed to. They weren't there yesterday. Kira? I call out, my voice echoing through the empty apartment. No response. She's gone again, vanished like morning mist, leaving only the faint scent of ozone and something floral I can't identify. I trace the marks with trembling fingers. 6 months of this. 6 months of waking to find my skin decorated with wounds I never felt, never remembered receiving. The doctors stopped returning my calls after the 3rd visit when my blood work came back anomalous and the tissue samples dissolved before analysis. The cuts always heal quickly, too quickly. Within hours, they fade to silver lines that catch the light strangely, as if my skin has been rewoven with metallic thread. I've stopped wearing tank tops, stopped going to the gym, stopped explaining to friends why I suddenly prefer long sleeves in summer. My phone buzzes. A text from my sister. Still coming to dinner Sunday? I stare at the message, remembering how she looked at me last time. Concerned, frightened, like I was becoming something she didn't recognize. Maybe I am. The apartment feels different when Kira's gone. Smaller somehow, as if her presence expands the very air. I found her on my fire escape 3 months ago during a thunderstorm. Silver hair plastered to angular features that belonged in a Renaissance painting, not a Chicago alley. She'd looked at me with eyes like liquid mercury and said simply, "They've found you." I should have called the police, should have demanded answers. Instead, I'd wrapped her in my bathrobe and made tea, drawn to her otherworldly beauty like a moth to flame. Now I wonder if that was my choice at all. "You're hurting me." The words tumble out before I can stop them when Kira materializes in my living room, stepping through solid wall like it's made of water. She freezes, silver hair shimmering with its own internal light. "The marks serve a purpose, Julian." Her voice carries harmonics that make my teeth ache. Each one seals a breach, prevents infiltration. You cannot see what lurks in the spaces between thoughts, but I can. That's insane. I gesture at my reflection in the dark window, at the constellation of scars mapping my torso. "Look at me. I look like I've been through a paper shredder." She approaches with fluid grace, fingers hovering just above my newest wound. I feel heat radiating from her skin. Not human warmth, but something electric, alive. "Your species sees only surface damage. These marks run deeper, creating barriers in dimensions you cannot perceive." "My species." The words crack like a whip. "Jesus, Kira. Do you hear yourself?" Her eyes, those impossible mercury pools, flicker with something that might be pain. "I hear everything, Julian. The whispers between heartbeats, the screams from parallel possibilities where I failed to protect you. In 17 different realities, you died last Tuesday. In 43 more, your mind shattered when they found a way inside." I sink into my armchair, suddenly exhausted. Who are they? What do they want? Parasites that feed on consciousness itself. They slip through cracks in reality, drawn to minds with potential. She settles beside me, close enough that I can see the faint patterns beneath her skin. Circuitry or scarification, I can't tell. "Your thoughts burn brighter than most. To them, you are sustenance." To me, she doesn't finish, but her hand finds mine. Her touch sends electricity up my arm, and for a moment, I swear I can see what she sees. Shadows moving in my peripheral vision, hungry things with too many angles pressing against invisible barriers. Then the moment passes, leaving me gasping. My laptop screen flickers as I research, words dissolving and reforming like they're written in water. Every search leads nowhere. Articles that vanish when I click them, forums that redirect to blank pages. The internet itself seems to bend around my questions about dimensional parasites and protective scarification. Kira watches from the kitchen doorway, stirring tea that steams in colors that shouldn't exist. Your technology cannot process truths it wasn't designed to contain, she says, as if reading my thoughts. Maybe she is. Then explain it to me properly. I slam the laptop shut. No metaphors, no mystical bullshit. I want facts. She sets down 2 cups, the liquid inside shifting from blue to gold to deep purple. Facts are what your mind can accept. Truth is often something else entirely. The tea tastes like starlight and copper. I am not from your world, Julian. My people travel between layers of reality, shepherding species through their evolutionary growing pains. Shepherding. I let the word sit heavy between us. Like livestock, like children. Her expression softens, becoming almost human. Your species stands on the threshold of true consciousness expansion. But growth attracts predators, entities that consume ascending minds before they can reach their potential. I touch the latest scar, feeling the strange warmth beneath my skin. And the cuts, quantum anchors. Each mark ties you more firmly to this reality, makes it harder for the parasites to drag you sideways into their feeding dimensions. She reaches across the table, fingertips brushing my knuckles. I have been watching over your species for 3 centuries. I have never felt compelled to save one individual before. The admission hangs in the air like smoke. Why me? Because when I first saw you, your thoughts were singing. Something breaks open in my chest. Fear or relief or maybe both. The room tilts, and I realize I'm crying. Tears I didn't know I was holding. I wake to find her leaning over me, silver hair cascading like liquid metal in the moonlight. Her hands hover inches above my chest, fingers weaving patterns in the air that leave traceries of light. I should be afraid, but instead I feel profound calm, as if her presence has quieted some internal storm I didn't know was raging. Sleep, she whispers, but I catch her wrist. Show me, I say. I want to see what you see. Her mercury eyes widen. Julian, no. Your mind isn't ready for. Show me. I pull her closer, feeling the electric heat of her skin. I trust you. The words seem to undo something in her careful composure. She settles beside me on the bed, palm pressed flat against my chest where my heart hammers against my ribs. Hold on, she breathes. Reality fractures. I'm still in my bedroom, but it's not my bedroom. It's 17 different bedrooms existing simultaneously, each one slightly wrong. In some, I'm screaming. In others, I'm not there at all, just bloodstains on empty sheets. And through all of them, things move in the shadows between seconds, creatures made of hungry angles and impossible geometries. They press against barriers I can't see but somehow feel, thin places in the world where my scars burn like brands. One of the things notices me noticing it, and its attention is a physical weight that makes my bones ache. Then Kira's power slams down like a curtain, pulling me back to singular reality. I'm gasping, clinging to her like she's the only solid thing in a universe made of water. Now you know, she says, and her voice is tired in a way that speaks of centuries of vigilance. Now you understand why I cannot simply leave you unprotected. I understand more than that. I understand why she looks at me like I'm already broken, why her touch carries such desperate tenderness. In most of those realities, I was already lost. The scarring accelerates over the following weeks. I wake each morning to find new marks, sometimes delicate traceries like frost on window glass, other times bold slashes that burn with internal fire. My reflection becomes unrecognizable, skin transformed into a living map of protection and purpose. Kira grows more solid somehow, her presence less ethereal and more grounded. She starts staying through the daylight hours, brewing impossible teas and humming songs in languages that predate human civilization. I catch her watching me with an expression I can't quite read. Wonder, perhaps, or something deeper. You're changing, she says one evening as I examine the latest additions to my collection. These curve around my ribs like embracing arms, silver bright and warm to the touch. Because of the scars? Because of acceptance. She joins me at the mirror, her reflection strangely solid beside mine. Most humans fight the process, reject the modifications their minds cannot rationalize. You have chosen adaptation instead. I think about this, turning to study the interplay of marks across my torso. They're beautiful in their own way, alien art inscribed on human canvas. Maybe I was never meant to be entirely human. Her hand finds my shoulder, thumb tracing the curve of an older scar. Perhaps not. The universe rarely wastes potential. That night, I dream of singing stars and vast libraries of knowledge written in languages of light. When I wake, I can taste colors and hear the electromagnetic whispers of my phone charging across the room. The world has gained new dimensions, and I move through them like I was born to navigate impossible spaces. Kira watches me with something approaching pride. You are becoming what your species could be, given time and proper guidance. And what's that? Something worth protecting. It happens during a Tuesday afternoon conference call. I'm discussing quarterly projections when reality skips like a scratched record, and suddenly there's something else in the room with me. Something that exists in the spaces between photons, all sharp edges and hungry intention. My scars ignite with silver fire, and I bite back a scream as the protective barriers strain against an assault I can barely perceive. The thing presses closer, and I feel its attention like acid on my thoughts, probing for weaknesses in my quantum anchoring. Julian. My colleague's voice comes from the laptop speaker, distorted and distant. Are you there? We lost your video. I can't answer. All my focus is on maintaining the walls Kira built in my flesh, feeling them buckle under pressure that shouldn't exist. The entity flows around the barriers like water, seeking the smallest gap, the tiniest flaw that would let it slip inside my mind. Then Kira is there, materializing between me and the hungry darkness with such force that my windows rattle. Power cascades from her in waves that make my teeth ache, and the parasite recoils with something that might be surprise. The battle happens in dimensions I can barely perceive. Flashes of impossible colors, sounds that bypass my ears and resonate directly in my bones. Kira moves like liquid lightning, her form shifting between states of matter as she weaves attacks from pure intention. The parasite breaks first, dissolving back into whatever spaces between spaces it emerged from. Kira collapses to her knees, silver hair dimmed to ordinary platinum, breathing hard. They're getting stronger, she gasps. More persistent. Your evolution is accelerating their hunger. I disconnect from the call and kneel beside her, hands hovering uncertainly over her trembling form. How long do we have? Not long. They will come again soon, and in greater numbers. For the first time since this began, I see fear in her mercury eyes. That night, she doesn't disappear. Instead, she curls against me in my bed, solid and warm and unexpectedly fragile. Her skin carries the faint luminescence of deep-sea creatures, and when I trace the patterns beneath its surface, she shivers. Tell me about your world. I whisper against her hair that smells like storm winds and starlight. There is no world as you understand it. We exist in the spaces between realities, shepherding consciousness as it grows from simple awareness to cosmic understanding. Her voice vibrates through my chest where her head rests. It is lonely work. We observe but do not truly connect, cannot connect without altering the very thing we seek to protect. But you connected with me. I tried not to. Her admission is barely audible. For weeks, I watched from the periphery as they gathered around you, drawn by your potential. I told myself clinical detachment was sufficient, that standard protective protocols would suffice. I feel her smile against my collarbone. Then you invited a strange woman in from the rain and made tea without asking questions. You looked at me like I was miraculous instead of terrifying, and I was lost. Kira. I tilt her chin up so our eyes meet. In the darkness, hers glow like captured moonlight. What happens when this is over? When I'm fully evolved or whatever? I don't know. The honesty cuts deeper than any of her scars ever could. I have never guided someone to completion. Always, we withdraw before attachment becomes problematic. And if you don't withdraw, she considers this, thumb tracing the line of my jaw. Then perhaps I learn what it means to choose love over duty. I kiss her then, tasting lightning and possibility. Her response is desperate, hungry, like she's trying to memorize the moment before it can be taken away. When we break apart, new scars have appeared on both our wrists, matching silver bands that pulse with shared heartbeat. We're bound now, she breathes, and I don't know if it's warning or promise. They come at dawn. Not one parasite but dozens. Reality tears opening like wounds across my apartment. I wake to find the air itself bleeding shadows, and my scars scream with silver agony as the protective barriers strain under coordinated assault. Kira moves like a force of nature, her form shifting between states. Sometimes solid flesh, sometimes pure energy, always deadly. But there are so many of them, and each one that falls seems to stumble two more from whatever hungry dimension spawned them. They've adapted, she shouts over the sound of reality tearing. Found ways to circumvent individual anchor points. We need. A parasite the size of a grown man unfolds from the wall beside her. All teeth and reaching limbs and impossible angles. It wraps around her waist, and I watch in horror as her light begins to dim. Something breaks inside me, not fear, but fury. These things want to devour consciousness. Then let them try to digest this. I reach deep into the place where my scars connect to something vast and pull. Power floods through me. Not silver bright like Kira's, but deep gold touched with crimson. The parasites nearest to me recoil, their forms wavering as if I've become toxic to their touch. Julian, no. Kira's voice cuts through the chaos. You're not ready for full manifestation, but I'm already burning, already changing. The scars across my body burst into flame that doesn't consume, and I understand finally what I'm becoming. Not human, not alien. Something entirely new, a bridge between states of existence. The parasites flee like smoke before wind, and the reality tears seal themselves with audible pops. In the sudden silence, Kira and I stare at each other across the wreckage of my living room. Well, she says finally, that was unexpected. The change isn't painful exactly. It's like becoming aware of muscles I never knew I had, senses that were always there but dormant. I can see the electromagnetic spectrum as clearly as visible light, feel the quantum fluctuations that underlie all matter, hear the songs that gravity sings when it bends space-time. Kira watches with fascination and growing concern as I explore my new capabilities. Your evolution has jumped forward by millennia, she says, scanner-like devices materializing from thin air to take readings I can't interpret. This shouldn't be possible. Maybe your species doesn't understand humans as well as you think. I reach out with senses I don't have names for, mapping the dimensional barriers around my apartment. They're stronger now, woven from my transformed consciousness rather than merely anchored to it. We've always been good at surprising each other. Julian, her voice carries warning. With power comes responsibility. Your transformed state makes you visible to entities far more dangerous than the parasites we've been fighting. Apex predators that feed on evolved consciousness itself. I consider this watching dust motes dance through probability streams only I can perceive. Then we'd better make sure I know how to fight them. The training begins immediately. Kira teaches me to fold space, to step sideways through dimensions, to weave attacks from pure thought. I learn to see the underlying code that reality runs on and, more importantly, how to edit it. But with each lesson, I feel her pulling away, not physically, but emotionally. She watches me with the expression of someone memorizing a sunset, beautiful and fleeting and already past. You don't need protection anymore, she says one evening as I successfully deflect a practice assault that would have liquefied my mind weeks ago. You've become something beyond my ability to shepherd. I need you, I correct her. Not as a guardian, as Kira. She looks away, silver hair catching light from stars I can now see through the city's glow. My people will call me back soon. They don't approve of attachment. Then don't go. The silence stretches between us like a held breath. The summons comes as dawn breaks over the city. Not sound but pure meaning transmitted directly into consciousness. Kira goes rigid beside me, Mercury eyes wide with something between terror and resignation. They know, she whispers, about us, about what you've become. They're coming to collect me and sanitize the situation. I feel them approaching, vast minds that dwarf even my expanded consciousness, ancient and cold and utterly without compassion. To them, I'm an aberration, an experiment that went wrong and needs correction. How long? I ask, already reaching out with new senses to map escape routes through folded space. Minutes. She turns to face me, and I see centuries of loneliness in her expression. Julian, they can unmake what you've become. Strip away your evolution, reset you to baseline human consciousness. I won't let them do that to you, and I won't let them take you. I stand, power crackling around me like visible heat. We run. Together. Where? They can track me across dimensions. There's nowhere in this reality they won't find us. I smile, remembering something she taught me about the spaces between possibilities. Then we don't hide in this reality. We make a new one. Understanding dawns in her eyes. Julian, creating a pocket dimension is beyond theoretical? Yeah, I figured. I take her hands, feeling the matching scars on our wrists pulse with shared purpose. Good thing I've never been much for limitations. The process is like being born backward, unmaking myself from ordinary spacetime and reforming in a place that exists only because we will it to. I pour everything I've become into the creation. Love and fury and desperate hope braided together into the foundation of somewhere that can be ours. When the light fades, we stand in a garden that blooms with impossible flowers under a sky painted in colors that don't exist. In the distance, I can feel her people searching, but their reach stops at the boundaries of our private universe. They'll never stop looking, Kira says, but she's smiling as she speaks. Let them look. I pull her close, marveling at how perfectly she fits against me. I've got all the time in the world to get better at hiding. She laughs, the first truly joyful sound I've ever heard from her. All the time in several worlds, actually. The scars we share pulse with warm light, no longer marks of protection but symbols of choice. In choosing each other, we've become something neither of our species could have imagined. Not human, not alien, but beautifully, defiantly, impossibly us. And in our garden of wonders, as stars will overhead in patterns we design moment by moment, I finally understand what the cuts were really protecting me from. Not parasites or predators, but the loneliness of remaining unchanged, unchallenged, unloved. The scars were never about keeping something out. They were about keeping something in.